Oh, I think I need to stop smelling it when I taste it. Hi and welcome to my channel. I'm Daryl Smith and I love to bake and brew and do other things that are really fun and rewarding. So in this video I'm going to do something a bit different and brew a beer that I found in a really old book that I found in the charity shop. It's called Homebrewed Beer and Stouts. What's really interesting about this book is that it was actually first published the very first year that you could legally brew at home in the UK, 1963. It's got some really unusual recipes in it, which you would never see anyone caught dead brewing now, as well as some bizarre techniques and things that we've grown to stop doing now. Like, they put plaster of Paris in some of the recipes, and I'm pretty sure that's used for building walls. So when I first flicked through this book, a recipe that absolutely caught my eye was something called Treacle Ale, which is made exclusively using Demerara sugar, golden syrup, and black treacle, all in equal parts. There are no other sugars added. So this is pure, highly processed sugars, which is then fermented. There are a little bit of hops in there, but not very much at all. It's a very odd recipe and I just had to try and brew it. Something to note when I first looked at this recipe and then added it to Beersmith is that it was going to come out at 10% and that was pretty scary. So I actually ended up winding it down a little bit and making it more of a 6% beer. I don't know if it's made it any better or worse, but I was just terrified of making some horrible 10% just pure alcohol mess. So before I show you how my brew day went, let me know if you actually were brewing from 1963 in the UK. I'd be really interested to know like what your experiences were to start with. I heard that a lot of people got really put off to start with. Like, my granddad started brewing in the 60s and pretty much gave up straight away because he just kept making bad beer. Because the mad thing is, back then it was pretty much books like this that were educating people. There were no brewing courses, there was not YouTube or anything, so it literally was books, and like maybe you'd bump into someone who would be like, ooh, maybe you should add plaster of Paris to your beer. So this is how my brew day went.
The only water treatment I did for this brew was to add half a Camden tablet an hour before to get rid of the chlorine. Then I prepared my only hop addition, which was 28 grams of Fuggle. Once the water was boiling, I opened the golden syrup jars and started pouring it into the water. I then started adding the black treacle, which is exactly the same thing as molasses and is the main ingredient in licorice sweets, which becomes completely apparent the moment you smell it boiling. The final sugar I added was Demerara sugar. Once all the sugars were in, I stirred the water as much as possible and tried to make sure there wasn't any big blobs of sugar stuck to the bottom which could burn. I then added my only hop addition for the entire 45-minute boil. 15 minutes before the end of the boil, I added my copper cooling coil to sanitize it ahead of cooling. And 10 minutes before the end, I added Irish moss to help the beer get clearer, as well as adding yeast nutrient. Once my kitchen was stinking like Hell's Sweet Shop, it was finally time to cool down the wort. Once I had cooled the wort to 40 degrees Celsius, it was time to send some of my Kveik yeast to its doom. The yeast that I sacrificed was a 3rd generation wash Kveik Voss. I then gave it all a good shake and left it to ferment.
So as you just saw, despite that being my fastest ever brew day, it was also my least favourite, as my kitchen absolutely stank for about 3 days after brewing it. I really highly recommend not brewing it purely based on the smell. So today is actually 2 months since I first bottled it. My dad and I have actually tried this beer. He was visiting us and I had to share it with him, and we hated it. It was disgusting. This is now 2 months on since then. So I'm really hoping that perhaps it's actually started to taste nice. I'm not convinced. I don't know if this matures like a beautiful wine. I mean, I will keep a few bottles and try drinking it in a year from now. If you want to watch that video, yes, stay tuned for that. But I'm assuming it will resume being horrible. I have to also say, I really regret bottling 40 bottles of this. If I'm to work my way through this book, I do need to get a smaller brewing system for weird experimental stuff, because 40 pints of this horrible beer is just like too much. So it actually fermented out very dry. I mean, the driest that I've ever fermented any beer, you know, is 10000 on the thing that you drop in the beer and it tells you the the sugars. Hydrometer! Yeah, the hydrometer was on 10000. There is no sugars left in this. It's going to be so dry. That'll be because it was all like processed sugars, I assume. The yeast possibly was stressed or loved it, one of the two, and it ate all the sugars. So here we go. Let's try this. So possibly unsurprisingly, this is the clearest beer I've ever brewed. I mean, should I stop calling it beer? This is not beer. This is fermented sugars. Maybe it's a hard seltzer? This is seltzer. I've made seltzer, but out of horrible, horrible ingredients. Let's smell it. It actually smells better than last time. Last time it really smelled like chemicals. This time it doesn't. There's 0 hop character, but it actually smells all right. When I last opened it, it had more of a head, weirdly, but it's not remaining this time, but we do expect pure sugars to retain a head. I'm gonna stop holding this off and I'm just gonna try it. Okay. Oh no, there's the horribleness. Oh, it's weird. The first sip just then was actually all right. It mellowed out some of the nastiness from the previous time I tested this, but the aftertaste is just so horrible. And it's so dry. And actually then it starts smelling bad. I can smell it on my own face. But I'm pleased that I have actually emptied most of the bottles of this already down the sink, so to make way for other beers. But no, this is bad. There's 0 hop character at all. I mean, there's barely any hops in it. It smells like chemicals again. It's not mellowed out. It smells less bad than it did before, but it still smells bad. And it's been 2 months. This ain't mead. You know, it's not going to get really good in a year from now, is it? I mean, is it? I'll keep a bottle. We'll see. All right, another taste. I think I need to stop smelling it when I taste it. Ugh. Again, the first sip isn't bad, but then, honestly, then it just comes on like a taste like I'm drinking bleach. Right, so I'm not drinking any more of that, and I'm it just tastes bad. It tastes like badness. Like all of the flavour that may have been in the molasses and the golden syrup from the Demerara sugars, obviously it's been taken away by the yeast. There's no yeast character to this. There's just alcohol and chemicals. But it has got a beautiful colour, so that's something. Don't make this beer. I will put the recipe in the description if you're mad enough to try it, but please don't. I'd be interested to do another beer using some of the ideas of this, like maybe something that's like got quite a high concentration of golden syrup in it. I've made bitters in the past that have got golden syrup in them, and golden syrup does add something to the character. It certainly shouldn't be the whole beer. I'd be tempted to maybe brew something like this, which is more heavily hopped. But again, like, who actually wants to drink this? It is clean in chemicals. There's a reason why in the modern beer revolution that no one's tried making this at a professional scale. I think this is so far the only YouTube video that has even attempted this recipe. Don't do it. This is no good. This is a waste of my time. This video has been a waste of yours. If you'd like me to brew more recipes from this mad book, or if you've got any old recipes that maybe have been handed to you by a relative, then let me know. You know, maybe I'll occasionally try and make some of this horrible beer, or discover that there's actually some like real amazing lost gems. But certainly this Treacle Ale is not it. So subscribe if you would like to see me drink more horrible drinks or nice drinks in the future. Thanks for watching the whole video. It's been a pleasure making this for you, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers!